You're sitting in an expensive restaurant, celebrating a major business deal that just made you millions. The champagne is flowing, the conversation is light, and life feels perfect. Then a small voice interrupts your celebration. You look down to see a young girl, maybe 8 years old, with tear-stained cheeks and hope in her eyes. She asks you a question so unexpected, so heartbreaking, that it stops your world completely. Excuse me, ma'am. Could you be my mom for 3 hours? In that moment, everything you thought you knew about success, family, and what really matters gets turned upside down. This isn't just a story about a random encounter. This is about how one child's desperate plea transformed a powerful CEO's entire understanding of what it means to truly live. What happens next will restore your faith in humanity and remind you that sometimes the most Williams adjusted her designer blazer as she walked through the revolving doors of the Metropolitan, one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants. At 42, she was the youngest female CEO in her company's history, and tonight was supposed to be her victory celebration. The Henderson manufacturing deal she had just closed would add $30 million to her company's portfolio, and she finally felt she had proven herself in a world dominated by men. The restaurant hummed with the quiet conversations of Chicago's elite. Crystal glasses clinked against each other, and the soft jazz music created the perfect backdrop for celebrating success. Had reserved the private dining room for her team of 6 executives who had worked tirelessly for months to secure this deal. As she made her way to the table, she could see her colleagues already seated, their faces bright with anticipation. Called out David, her chief financial officer, raising his glass of champagne. Here's to the woman who just made us all very wealthy. The table erupted in applause as took her seat at the head of the mahogany table. The chandelier above cast a warm glow over the celebration, and for a moment felt truly content. She had sacrificed so much to get here: weekends, holidays, relationships, even the possibility of having her own family. But sitting in this room, surrounded by colleagues who respected her achievements, it all seemed worth it. I have to admit, said Sarah, the head of marketing, when we started this deal 8 months ago, I wasn't sure we could pull it off. Henderson Industries had turned down 5 other companies before us. I smiled, remembering the countless late nights spent reviewing contracts and the numerous flights to Henderson's headquarters in Detroit. The key was understanding what they really needed, she explained, cutting into her perfectly prepared salmon. Everyone else was trying to impress them with numbers. We gave them a partnership that would grow their business for the next 20 years. As the evening progressed, the conversation flowed as smoothly as the expensive wine they were sharing. Found herself relaxing for the first time in months. The stress of the negotiation, the pressure from the board of directors, and the constant need to prove herself. It all seemed to melt away in the warmth of this celebration. You know what this means for the company?" asked James, the senior vice president. "We're looking at expanding into 3 new markets next year. You've basically secured our future for the next decade." Nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. She had built her career methodically, climbing each rung of the corporate ladder with determination and intelligence. Starting as an entry-level analyst 15 years ago, she had worked her way up through sheer willpower and an unwavering focus on success. Every promotion, every successful deal, every recognition had brought her closer to this moment, the moment when she could finally say she had made it. The restaurant's atmosphere was perfect for reflection. The soft lighting made everything look golden, and the gentle murmur of conversations from other tables created a sense of intimacy. Looked around at her team, realizing that these people had become like family to her. They had shared the stress, the victories, and the defeats together. In many ways, they knew her better than anyone else in her life. "I want to thank each of you," said, standing up with her glass in hand. "This deal wasn't just about me. It was about all of us working together, believing in something bigger than ourselves, and never giving up even when Henderson's board made us rewrite that proposal 3 times." The table laughed, remembering the frustration they had all felt during the negotiation process. There had been moments when it seemed like the deal would fall through completely, moments when had questioned whether all their hard work would pay off. As the evening continued, excused herself to use the restroom. Walking through the restaurant, she noticed the elegant details she had missed when she arrived. The original oil paintings on the walls, the fresh flowers on each table, the impeccable service that made every guest feel special. This was the kind of place she had always imagined herself dining in when she was a young woman starting her career. Growing up in a modest neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, had always dreamed of success. Her mother had worked 2 jobs to support her and her younger brother after their father left when was 12. She remembered watching her mother count bills at the kitchen table every month, trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Those memories had driven to work harder than anyone else, to study longer, to take on more responsibility, to never let financial insecurity touch her life again. The bathroom was as elegant as the rest of the restaurant, with marble countertops and gold fixtures. Looked at herself in the mirror, seeing the successful woman she had become. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, and her clothes spoke of both good taste and significant income. But as she stood there, she suddenly felt a strange emptiness she couldn't quite identify. On her way back to the table, decided to take a different route through the restaurant. The main dining room was still busy with late dinner guests, and she enjoyed observing the other diners, couples celebrating anniversaries, business associates closing deals, families enjoying special occasions together. It reminded her of how far she had come from the days when a dinner at a place like this would have been an impossible dream. As she walked past a corner booth near the kitchen entrance, something caught her eye. A small figure was sitting alone at a table meant for 4 people. At first, thought it might be a child waiting for their parents to return from the bathroom. But as she looked more closely, she realized the little girl was completely alone. The child appeared to be about 8 or 9 years old, with beautiful dark skin and hair braided with colorful beads. She was wearing a faded purple dress that looked like it had been carefully maintained, but was clearly not new. Her small hands were folded in her lap, and she was staring straight ahead with an expression that seemed far too serious for someone her age. They felt a pang of concern. Where were this child's parents? How had she gotten into such an expensive restaurant alone? The hostess at the front would never have seated an unaccompanied minor, especially not at dinner time when the restaurant was at its busiest. She glanced around the dining room, looking for adults who might be searching for a lost child or parents who had stepped away momentarily. But everyone seemed absorbed in their own conversations and meals. No one appeared to be looking for anyone. Hesitated. She had always been focused on her career, and interactions with children were not something she had much experience with. She had chosen not to have children of her own, believing that she couldn't be both a successful executive and a good mother. The corporate world demanded too much time, too much energy, too much of her complete attention. But something about this little girl's stillness, her quiet dignity as she sat alone, pulled at its heart in a way she wasn't prepared for. The child wasn't crying or making a scene. She was simply waiting, as if she was used to being alone, used to taking care of herself in situations that would terrify most children her age. Approached the table slowly, not wanting to frighten the girl. As she got closer, she could see that the child's eyes held a wisdom that seemed beyond her years, along with a sadness that made its chest tighten with unexpected emotion. "Excuse me, sweetheart," said gently, stopping beside the table. "Are you okay? Are you waiting for someone?" The little girl looked up at with large, intelligent brown eyes. For a moment she didn't speak, just studied's face as if trying to determine whether this stranger could be trusted. When she finally spoke, her voice was clear but soft, with a maturity that surprised. "Yes, ma'am, I'm waiting," the girl said politely. "But not for someone to come get me. I'm waiting for someone to help me with something really important." I felt her heart skip a beat. There was something in the child's tone, something in the way she held herself, that suggested this was not a simple case of separated family members. This felt bigger, more complex, and somehow more heartbreaking than had initially realized. "What kind of help do you need?" asked, sitting down in the chair across from the little girl. As she did, she caught a glimpse of her colleagues at their table across the restaurant, probably wondering where she had disappeared to. But in this moment, all of that seemed far away and unimportant. The little girl took a deep breath, as if she was preparing to ask something that required all of her courage. Her small hands fidgeted with the edge of the tablecloth, and could see that whatever she was about to say was both very important to her and very difficult to express. "My name is," the girl said, looking directly into his eyes with a seriousness that made his breath catch. "And I need to ask you something that might sound really strange, but it's the most important thing in the whole world to me right now." Leaned forward slightly, giving her complete attention. In her years of business negotiations, she had learned to recognize when someone was about to share something significant, something that would change the entire nature of a conversation. She could sense that this was one of those moments. "Well, what is it?" said softly. "You can ask me anything." Looked down at her hands for a moment, gathering her thoughts, and then looked back up at with an expression of hope mixed with fear of rejection. When she spoke, her words would change everything thought she knew about what truly mattered in life. The question that followed would echo in his mind for the rest of the evening, and long after that, challenging everything she had built her life around and opening her heart to possibilities she had never imagined. Small voice cut through the ambient noise of the restaurant like a whisper that somehow commanded attention. "Excuse me, ma'am. Could you be my mom for 3 hours?" This world stopped. The clinking of silverware, the gentle laughter from nearby tables, the soft jazz music. Everything faded into silence as she processed what she had just heard. She stared at, certain she had misunderstood, but the child's earnest expression told her that she had heard correctly. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" managed to ask, her voice barely audible. His eyes never wavered from his face. "Could you be my mom for 3 hours? I know it sounds weird, and I know you don't know me, but I really, really need a mom right now, just for a little while." They felt her heart hammering in her chest. In all her years of business dealings, negotiations, and unexpected challenges, nothing had ever caught her as off guard as this simple, devastating question from a 8-year-old girl. She looked around the restaurant quickly, still hopping to see frantic parents searching for their lost child. But the dining room continued its elegant rhythm, as if nothing extraordinary was happening. Said slowly, trying to keep her voice steady. "Where are your real parents? How did you get here?" The little girl's composure began to crack slightly, and could see tears forming in the corners of her eyes, though was clearly fighting to keep them from falling. "My real mom isn't here anymore," she said quietly. "She went to heaven 6 months ago, and my dad—" She paused, taking a shaky breath. "My dad had to go away for a while. He didn't want to, but he had to." It felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. This child was essentially an orphan, sitting alone in one of Chicago's most expensive restaurants, asking a complete stranger to be her mother for 3 hours. The absurdity and heartbreak of the situation was almost too much to process. "Who are you staying with now?" asked gently, her CEO training kicking in as she tried to gather information and understand the full scope of the situation. My aunt explained. She's really nice and she tries her best, but she works 3 jobs and she has 4 kids of her own. Today is really special, and I need a mom for just 3 hours, and I thought maybe someone here might help me. Glanced back at her celebration table, where her colleagues were deep in conversation, probably sharing stories about the Henderson deal and planning their next strategic moves. The contrast between her world and was so stark it made her feel dizzy. While she was celebrating a $30 million business success, this child was sitting alone, asking strangers to fill a hole in her life that no amount of money could ever fix. What's so special about today, sweetheart? Asked, though she wasn't sure she was prepared for the answer. Reached into a small, worn backpack that hadn't noticed before. From it, she pulled out a folded piece of paper that had clearly been handled many times. The creases were deep, and the edges were slightly frayed, as if it had been read over and over again. Today is the mother-daughter reading night at my school, explained, unfolding the paper carefully. Every year, they have this special event where moms and daughters come together and read stories and eat cookies and talk about books. I've been looking forward to it since the beginning of the school year. Looked at the paper handed her. It was a colorful flyer advertising Lincoln Elementary's annual mother-daughter reading night, celebrating the love of books and family. The event was scheduled for that evening from 7 to 10 o'clock, exactly 3 hours. At the bottom of the flyer, in a child's careful handwriting, was name signed up to attend. I already signed up before. His voice trailed off, and she didn't finish the sentence but understood. She had signed up when her mother was still alive, when she had a mom to take her to events like this. I felt tears threatening her own eyes now. Oh, why didn't you ask your aunt to take you? I did, said simply. But she has to work tonight, and she can't find anyone to watch my cousins. She felt really bad about it, but she needs the money from her evening job. I told her it was okay because I didn't want her to feel worse. The maturity in response stunned. This child was protecting her aunt's feelings while dealing with her own disappointment and grief. She was handling a situation that would challenge many adults with grace and understanding that had rarely seen in the corporate world. So you came here to ask someone to be your mom for the evening? Asked, trying to understand logic. Nodded seriously. I walked by this restaurant earlier today when Aunt brought me with her to her cleaning job in this building. I saw all the nice ladies eating dinner, and they looked like the kind of moms who would go to reading nights. I thought maybe one of them might want to help me. His heart broke a little more with each word. This child had strategically chosen this restaurant, had somehow gotten inside, and was systematically asking well-dressed women to help her attend a school event. The combination of innocence and desperation in the plan was both heartbreaking and remarkable. How many other people have you asked? Wondered aloud. You're the first one, admitted. I was scared to ask anyone else. Most people look really busy and important, and I didn't want to bother them. But when I saw you walking by, you looked kind. You reminded me a little bit of my mom. I felt a lump forming in her throat. The idea that she somehow reminded this child of her deceased mother was overwhelming. She had spent so many years focusing on being strong, independent, and successful that she had forgotten what it might feel like to be seen as maternal or nurturing. Tell me about your mom, said softly, settling more comfortably in her chair. She could sense that her colleagues were probably wondering where she had gone, but she couldn't bring herself to care about that right now. His face lit up for the first time since had sat down. She was the best mom in the whole world, she said with the absolute certainty that only children possess. She read to me every single night, even when she was really sick. She worked at the library, and she knew everything about books. She said that books were like magic because they could take you anywhere you wanted to go. As talked about her mother, could see the love and loss warring in the child's expression. The way she spoke about her mom with such reverence and detail made it clear that their bond had been extraordinary. She always said that the most important thing about reading wasn't just the stories, but sharing them with people you love, continued. That's why the mother-daughter reading night is so important to me. It's like I could still share that with her if someone could be my mom for just those 3 hours. They found herself completely absorbed in story. The child's ability to articulate her feelings and her deep understanding of what she had lost was remarkable. But beyond that, was beginning to recognize something in herself, a longing she had buried so deep under ambition and success that she had almost forgotten it existed. What happened to your mom? Asked gently, though she wasn't sure would want to share such personal information. She got really sick, explained matter-of-factly. The doctors tried really hard to make her better, but sometimes even doctors can't fix everything. She told me that even though she wouldn't be able to be with me anymore, all the love she gave me would stay inside me forever. And whenever I missed her, I should think about all our happy times together. I was amazed by his ability to discuss such a traumatic loss with such composure. It was clear that her mother had prepared her as best she could for what was coming, had given her tools to cope with grief that many adults never learn. "And your dad?" asked carefully. This expression grew more complicated. "Daddy loves me a lot, but after Mom died, he started feeling really sad all the time. He tried to take care of me, but sometimes he would forget to eat or sleep or go to work. One day, some people came to talk to him, and they decided he needed to go somewhere to learn how to feel better. He promised me that as soon as he's feeling strong again, he'll come back for me. Realized that's father was probably in some kind of treatment facility for depression, addiction, or both. The way explained it showed that someone had taken great care to help her understand the situation without frightening her or making her feel abandoned. "He writes me letters," added, brightening slightly. "He tells me about what he's learning and how he's getting stronger every day. He says that Mom is helping him get better from heaven, and that when he comes home, we're going to read all the books that Mom used to read to me." Looked at this extraordinary child and felt something shifting inside her chest. For years, she had told herself that she wasn't cut out for motherhood, that her career was too demanding, that she didn't have the patience or natural instincts that children needed. But sitting across from listening to her story, began to wonder if she had been wrong about herself. I said slowly, "What would happen if we went to this reading night together? What would I need to do?" His eyes widened with hope so pure and bright that felt like she was looking directly into the sun. "Really? You would really do that for me?" Nodded, surprising herself with how certain she felt. "Yes, I think I would, but I need to know what I'm signing up for." Bounced slightly in her chair with excitement. "It's really easy. We just go to my school and they have all these books set up in the library. We pick one together and read it, and then we talk about what we liked about it. And there are cookies and juice, and sometimes they have activities like bookmarks making. And at the end, they take a picture of all the moms and daughters together. Imagined herself in an elementary school library, reading children's books and making bookmarks. 6 months ago, the idea would have seemed absurd. But now it sounded like exactly what she wanted to do with her evening. There's just one thing," said. "I need to let my friends know that I won't be coming back to dinner with them." His face fell slightly. "Are you celebrating something important? I don't want to ruin your special night." Looked back at her colleagues, who were still deep in conversation about profit margins and expansion strategies. Then she looked at whose entire evening, possibly her entire year, depended on finding someone to care about her for 3 hours. "You know what?" said, making a decision that surprised her with its clarity. "I was celebrating something that will still be there tomorrow. But tonight, this is something that will never happen again. And I think it might be more important than anything I was celebrating over there." I stood up from the table with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt outside of a boardroom in years. "Wait right here. I need to go talk to my friends, and then we'll head to your school together." As she walked back to her celebration table, felt like she was moving through a dream. Everything looked the same: the elegant restaurant, her successful colleagues, the expensive champagne still bubbling in crystal glasses. But somehow everything felt completely different. She was seeing her life from a new perspective, and the contrast was startling. David called out as she approached. "We were wondering where you disappeared to. Sarah was just telling us about the Henderson contract details that still need to be finalized tomorrow." Looked around the table at these people who had been her primary family for the past several years. They were good people and loyal, but as she stood there, she realized how narrow their shared world had become. Everything revolved around deals, profits, market shares, and strategic planning. When had she last had a conversation that wasn't somehow related to business? "I'm sorry, everyone, but I need to leave," announced, reaching for her purse. The table fell silent. James nearly choked on his wine. "Leave? But we're just getting started. We haven't even talked about the Tokyo expansion yet, and the Henderson executives are supposed to call at 9 to finalize the celebration party details." They felt a moment of panic. These were important business matters. Missing the Henderson call could create complications that would affect dozens of people's jobs. The Tokyo expansion represented months of preparation and millions of dollars in potential revenue. 6 hours ago, these would have been the most important things in her world. But then she glanced over at who was sitting patiently at her table, carefully folding and refolding the mother-daughter reading Night Flyer. This little girl had lost her mother, was separated from her father, and was counting on a stranger to help her feel less alone on what should have been a special night. When weighed that against a business call and expansion planning, there was no contest. Can you handle the Henderson call without me?" she asked David. "You know the details as well as I do, and you have full authority to make any necessary decisions." David looked confused. "Of course I can handle it, but this is your victory celebration. What could possibly be so important that you'd leave right now?" Looked back at again, and this time her colleagues followed her gaze. They saw what she was looking at, a young black girl sitting alone in an expensive restaurant where she clearly didn't belong. "Is there some kind of problem over there?" Sarah asked, her voice carrying the slight edge of someone who was accustomed to solving issues quickly and efficiently. "Should we call the manager? That child shouldn't be unaccompanied in a place like this." They felt a surge of protective instinct that surprised her with its intensity. "There's no problem," she said firmly. "Her name is, and she asked me to help her with something very important tonight. I'm going to do it." The table exchanged glances that recognized from countless business meetings. It was the look people shared when they thought someone was making an emotional decision that would have negative practical consequences. James said carefully, "You're probably still riding high from closing the Henderson deal. It's natural to feel generous and want to help, but getting involved with random children you meet in restaurants isn't." "Isn't what?" interrupted, her voice sharper than she intended. "Isn't important, isn't worthwhile, isn't something a serious businesswoman should do." The tension at the table was palpable now. These were people who had worked with for years, and they had never seen her react emotionally to anything. She was known for her logical decision-making, her ability to separate personal feelings from business judgment, and her unwavering focus on professional priorities. "That's not what I meant," James backtracked. It's just that you don't know anything about this child or her situation. It could be complicated or even dangerous. What if she's lying? What if this is some kind of scam? What if her family comes after you for interfering? Realized that her colleagues were seeing this situation through the same lens she would have used just 30 minutes earlier. They were thinking about liability, risk assessment, potential negative outcomes, and the wisdom of getting emotionally involved with strangers. It was exactly how she had been trained to think about everything in her life. But as she looked at who was now carefully organizing the contents of her small backpack, knew with absolute certainty that every instinct her colleagues were expressing was wrong. This wasn't a business decision that needed to be analyzed for risk and return. This was a human moment that required her to choose between the safe, predictable world she had built and the scary, meaningful connection that was being offered to her. I understand your concerns, said, sitting down for a moment to address her team properly. 6 months ago, I would have said exactly the same things. But that little girl over there has been through more tragedy and hardship than any child should have to face. And tonight she needs someone to care about her for 3 hours. I'm going to be that person. But the Henderson celebration, the Tokyo planning meeting tomorrow morning, the quarterly reports that need your review, David protested. Held up her hand. All of that will still be there tomorrow. It will all get done just like it always does. But mother-daughter reading night is tonight, and if I don't go with her, she'll spend the evening alone while all her classmates are with their mothers. Some things are more important than business. Sarah leaned forward with the concerned expression she usually reserved for budget crises. I've never seen you like this. Are you sure you're thinking clearly? This is a huge night for all of us, for the company. You've worked so hard to get here. Stood up again, this time with complete resolve. I am thinking clearly, probably more clearly than I have in years. And you're right, I have worked incredibly hard to get here. I've sacrificed relationships, hobbies, spontaneity, and apparently my ability to recognize what really matters in life. But tonight, I have a chance to remember what it feels like to put another person's needs before my own success, and I'm not going to miss it. She pulled out her business credit card and handed it to James. Dinner is on me. Celebrate the Henderson deal, plan the Tokyo expansion, and have the celebration I would have had. but I'm going to spend my evening reading children's books with someone who needs me more than this company does right now." The table sat in stunned silence as gathered her purse and coat. She could feel their confusion and disapproval, but for the first time in years, she didn't care about managing other people's opinions of her choices. As she walked back to table, felt like she was shedding an old version of herself with every step. The CEO who never made impulsive decisions, who always put business first, who had convinced herself that success and achievement were the most important things in life. That person was still there, but she was no longer in control. "Ready to go?" asked, who looked up with excitement and relief that made's heart ache. "Really? You're really going to come with me?" asked, as if she couldn't quite believe her impossible plan had actually worked. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," said, and realized she meant it completely. As they walked toward the restaurant exit together, caught sight of her reflection in the large mirror by the hostess station. She looked the same as she had when she arrived: expensive clothes, perfect makeup, successful and confident. But the woman looking back at her felt entirely different. She felt alive in a way she had forgotten was possible. Anne said softly as they waited for the valet to bring's car around. "Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for saying yes. I was really scared that everyone would think my question was too weird, and that I'd have to go to the reading night by myself or not go at all." Knelt down so she was at eye level. "Your question wasn't weird at all. It was brave and honest and beautiful. And I'm grateful that you asked me because I think I needed this night as much as you do." I tilted her head curiously. "What do you mean?" I thought about how to explain it in a way an 8-year-old would understand. Sometimes grown-ups get so busy with work and being successful that they forget about the things that make life really special. Tonight, you're going to remind me about those things. As a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb, she helped into the passenger seat and carefully adjusted the seat belt. The child looked tiny in the leather interior, but she was practically glowing with happiness. "Lincoln Elementary is about 15 minutes from here," said, giving directions with the confidence of someone who had clearly memorized every detail of this evening. "And, oh yes, I think my mom would really like you," said simply. She always said that the best people are the ones who stop what they're doing to help someone else, even when it's not easy or convenient. As pulled into traffic, heading toward an elementary school she had never seen to attend an event, Lincoln Elementary School was nothing like the prestigious private institutions had attended growing up. The building was older, with worn brick walls and windows that had been painted over multiple times. But as they pulled into the parking lot, could see warm light spilling out of the library windows, and there were dozens of cars already there, filled with mothers and daughters making their way toward the entrance. There it is, pointed excitedly toward the school's main entrance, where a handmade banner stretched across the doorway reading, "Welcome to Mother-Daughter Reading Night," in bright, cheerful letters that had clearly been painted by students. I parked the car and looked around at the other families arriving. She saw mothers of all ages and backgrounds, some dressed casually in jeans and sweaters, others in work clothes as if they had come directly from their jobs. Some were carrying homemade cookies in Tupperware containers. Others had small gifts wrapped in colorful paper. What struck most was how happy everyone looked, how excited both the mothers and daughters were to be sharing this evening together. "Are you nervous?" asked, noticing that had been sitting quietly in the parked car for a few moments. Realized that she was nervous, but not in the way she was used to feeling before important business presentations or meetings. This was different, softer, and more personal. "A little bit," she admitted. "I've never been to anything like this before." "Really? You've never been to a school never imagined participating in?" She felt something she hadn't experienced in over a decade. She felt like she was going home. That smile was so radiant that felt her own face breaking into a grin she hadn't worn in years. For the first time in months, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Business deals aren't made in boardrooms. They're made with the heart of a child who just needs someone to care. Get ready for a true story that will make you laugh, cry, and question everything you thought you knew about success and family.